Comrades and friends, and especially to my dear comrade Minnie Bruce and fellow Alabamian, I am so honored to say that Leslie Feinberg was my comrade and my friend. There are so many reasons to thank her, as we all did today and still doing. For example, I worked with her on putting out Workers' World newspaper from the late 90s until her illness. She had already been a managing editor for the paper before I became one. And being a managing editor meant taking the ultimate responsibility for coordinating an entire issue of the paper on a weekly basis. And when I was considering taking on this important task, I had some apprehension about doing this because I had a lot of other tasks in the party that I was responsible for. But it was really Leslie who was the most encouraging in my taking it on, pointing out how it would help to develop my own skills as both a writer and an editor. And once I did become a managing editor, as Lalani said, she was always there, playing a helpful role whenever I needed her comradely advice. I may not have even edited the Marxism, Reparations, and Black Freedom Struggle book if it weren't for Leslie. I also want to thank Leslie for her central role in helping to build solidarity within the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender community for the voice of the voiceless, Mumia Abu-Jamal. Yes. Leslie, along with Amani Henry, was a co-founder of Rainbow Flags for Mumia back in the late 90s. A historic delegation of hundreds of LGBTQ activists participated in the Millions for Mumia March and rally of 25,000 people in Philadelphia, which at that time was demanding a new trial for Mumia. Mumia had, from the day he had been falsely arrested, railroaded to death row, following a trial fraught with injustice for almost 30 years until he got off of death row. He proclaimed his innocence in the killing of a white police officer. And from that time on, Leslie played a consistent role in not only organizing and fighting for the freedom of Mumia, but for the freedom of all political prisoners, from the early days of her writing and editing the prisoners page in Workers' World, even before she became a managing editor. In the spring of 2000, both Leslie and Mumia were chosen as commencement speakers by the graduating class at Antioch College. In 2007, Leslie was awarded with a Letter of Humanities Doctorate from the Starr King School for the Ministry in Berkeley. Part of Leslie's talk was on demanding the freedom from Mumia. And she stated, while she was wearing a Free Mumia sticker on her robe, this is a quote from her, "The struggle to free Mumia is a defining case of our era. Like the struggle to free the Scottsboro brothers and the Rosenbergs. It is part and parcel of the fight against racism and national oppression, against the prison industrial complex and the death penalty, used as a weapon by today's rulers, just as the emperors lined the road to Rome with crucified slaves to warn others against trying to rise up to break their shackles. We are modern-day abolitionists who are organizing to end this system of capitalist economic enslavement and build a society in which each individual can contribute what they can and in return receive all they need and desire. So I leave you with this question: which side are you on?" End quote. It was also ironic that Leslie's message to the theological students was on the role that Marxism plays in the liberation of all workers and oppressed. But being a revolutionary communist first and foremost, Leslie was always thoughtful in terms of being mild in manner, but bold in matter, and keeping in mind who her audience was, and how to win them over politically based on where they are in terms of their own consciousness. And she told these students, quote, "I think what brought us together here tonight is that we each sincerely want to change the world for the better. We may or may not agree on how, but we can meet by bridging conscious and consciousness," end quote. Referring to a quote taken out of context, which was attributed to Marx, that religion is the, quote, opium of the people, Leslie stated to the students, and I quote, "Marx was actually writing with great compassion for the suffering of the class that was and still is exploited, downtrodden, and disenfranchised." Marx wrote, "Religious suffering is at one and the same time the expression of real suffering and a protest against real suffering. Religion," he explained, "is the sigh of the oppressed. It is the heart of a heartless world and the soul of soulless conditions," end quote. Again, Leslie was so skillful in terms of taking an individual case like Mamiya's and generalizing it with a Marxist-Leninist analysis of why the capitalist system is not capable of any kind of genuine reform to win any kind of social equality, but has to be replaced root and branch with an economic system that puts human needs before profits. That is socialism. And in the video that you're going to see at the end of the program, you're going to see Leslie speaking before 6,000 people at Madison Square Garden Theater, demanding a new trial for Mamiya. And what you're going to see, what she's going to talk about, she's going to be connecting the then recent NYPD police murder of a young Haitian man, Patrick Dorisman, in Brooklyn, which generated major protests for many months, including direct action, very similar to the reaction to the murders of Eric Garner and Michael Brown, along with connecting it to the prison industrial complex, as we know today, the struggle against mass incarceration. And I have no doubt that when you hear what Leslie says, her words are just going to resonate to really what's going on today. So I really want to end, and I want to tell this story. I have to tell this story. I'm sorry for taking so long. I had the opportunity of going to Australia a few years ago with a friend, and we were just walking in Sydney, and we came upon this rally of mainly teachers who were fighting against austerity. And so we came upon a table. It was young, white activists. They were from a socialist organization. I can't remember the name of it. And so, we introduced ourselves, and I said I was with Workers' World Party, and they said, "Workers' World Party? We've never heard of Workers' World Party." I said, well, I tried to explain who we were, and then I noticed on their table that they had some LGBTQ literature on there. I said, well, do you happen to know Leslie Feinberg? Leslie Feinberg? You know Leslie Feinberg? I said, yes, she's in our party. I'm in the same party as Leslie Feinberg. And boy, that just opened up the discussion right then. And it really showed what Bob was saying, how, the world movement just, it's like she really is a rock star in a revolutionary sense of the word. So anyway, I want to thank you, Leslie, for holding up high the revolutionary banner of Marxism and Leninism that will eventually lead to what Marx and Engels stated in the Communist Manifesto over 150 years ago, that the working class will eventually become the gravediggers of capitalism. And Leslie, despite you being taken away from us all too painfully too soon, part of your inspiring legacy would be that you fought not only for your life, but for the liberation of your class to the bitter end. And we are all so proud that you were a member of Workers' World Party. Leslie Feinberg, presente.